What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to give you guys a very quick update about the markets. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. Anyways, so as far as the market's going, when you look at SPY on the 30 minutes time frame, it's quite evident that there is a possible left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder that's formed, and there is weakness in the chart right now. Also, when you zoom in a little bit, check this out. For this day, actually ever since like yesterday, since FOMC, SPY has been rejecting off these EMAs. See the green and yellow lines? We're actually making lower highs so far. Now, in order to be bullish, okay, and I just want to say that there's no confirmed direction yet since we're very choppy right now. We need to break 686 and hold above it. If we do, we could invalidate this downtrend. But if we lose 682, if we can't hold that for 4 hours, or if we close below 682, I do see a risk of us dumping to fill the gap towards 677. So as of right now, what's happening is SPY is like, since yesterday, kind of like pushed and rejected, which Jerome Powell's speech yesterday we rejected, then started to bounce. With the news involving big tech earnings, we started to reject. Even today, with all the trade negotiations between President Trump and President Xi Jinping, right, the same thing is going on. We're continuing to reject again. So this is looking weaker to me. There's a possible head and shoulders like pattern on SPY. We are choppy right now, so be a little bit careful with this. We're not necessarily like tanking yet, but there is a risk of downside if this continues. If we continue to make lower highs and we keep projecting like this, we could consolidate, but then there is that risk of us dumping a lot more. All right, so make sure you watch 682. We're going to see if it holds. If not, there's a gap to fill below. And overall, we're making lower highs and looking weak. On the QQQ, the same thing is going on. We have a head and shoulders like pattern. There's a left shoulder, head, and right shoulder that could be developing. You can also look at it from above. And then what you'll also notice is that we have this gap down here at 618 to fill on the QQQ. And then look at what's been happening for the last couple of hours, right? Yesterday, this was at 636 near all-time highs. We came down, then we got a rejection. We retested our EMAs and rejected. We pushed it, but now we're starting to reject. So it's slowly starting to decline a bit on the QQQ. Now, if we manage to hold above 632, we could try to invalidate this downtrend. But as of right now, although there is chop right now, if we don't hold, I would say around this like 629 area, I do see a risk of us declining to like 625 or below. So we're taking it one step at a time. But as of right now, there is weakness developing on the QQQ. We're starting to reject, reject, and reject. That is some weakness that is developing. On the IWM, the same thing is going on, right? We had this high up here at 252. This actually started to sell off early compared to SPY and the QQQ. Also, you could argue that this is like a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder, right? We had this high here. We came down with a lower high, came down. We're just making lower highs. Unless we reclaim 248, we're actually favoring a move back down towards 245. And if 245 fails us, there's also this gap all the way down towards 238. So there is downside risk on the QQQ, in my opinion, unless we hold above 248 to try to invalidate it. For now, the bears have a bigger edge. On ES, notice we got a rejection, rejection, rejection. Now, if we reclaim 69, 16, we could try to bounce more, but we're just chopping around 6,900 right now, and we're making lower highs compared to these EMAs. So if we lose 68.92, we're looking for more downside. And then also keep in mind, we have this gap all the way down towards 68.32. So to me, it looks like there is downside risk on ES. We're going to see if this lasts or not, but as of right now, there's downside risk. Same thing with NQ. We're just making lower highs. We have this head and shoulders like pattern. If we lose 25,983, there is a risk of this dipping even more all the way down towards 25,700. So there is, in my opinion, some downside risk looking at the current trend, right? So you want to be very careful with this. We're seeing a very similar trend on, SPY, the QQQ, ES, NQ, and etc. There is some downside risk looking at these setups. For other tickers out there, we also happen to have Bitcoin. Bitcoin is making lower highs and lower lows unless we get back above 108,000. There is some downside risk for 106,000. One more thing I just want to note, actually, SPY and the QQQ do have a lot of chop, by the way. We haven't really lost structure. So if you are trying to trade these, also keep in mind that the overall chop could be hurting premiums. So be careful with positioning. But overall, like I said before, there is still a risk of downside looking at the current setups unless we reclaim major support. Unless we get back above key levels, we're still looking bearish. For Tesla, it's showing weakness. We're making lower highs. We ended up touching 440. We're also down to 3.5%. We're trying to retest 445 to 450 is our resistances, but then there is a risk of us rejecting again because we have a gap to fill at 434. So I do think Tesla could be dropping to the 430 soon. There is still some downside risk. Nvidia is trying to bounce a bit. It has to try to reclaim like 204 to bounce more. If not, might pop and then reject. There is still some downside risk. So I just want everyone to be careful. Appl is kind of like rejecting up here. We have 272 as our resistance. We need to hold above this. If not, we could be dipping to 270. On Palantir, we're making lower highs. We have a head and shoulders. We could be dipping back down to 196, and we'll see if we bounce. If not, we could be dipping more. On AMD, we have resistance right here around this 262.5 area. We'll see if we reject or not. On Coinbase, we're making lower highs unless we hold above 343. We're going to be favoring a move back down to 333. On Amazon, we're making lower highs. There is also a head and shoulders like pattern, but whether or not this pumps or dumps depends a lot on earnings. So you never know what's going to happen, but just be careful with the current setup. Meta dumped really hard. It's still down 9.7% despite the fact that it's trying to bounce a little bit. But there is some tough resistance around this 682 to 685 area. We're going to see if we reclaim that. If not, it could reject again. So be careful right here. Google's retesting 284. We're going to see if this holds. If not, it could be dipping more towards 280. And then Microsoft is making lower highs. It needs to get back above at least 531 to really invalidate this downtrend. If it doesn't, we're on a downtrend, and there's going to be a risk of these lows being retested from yesterday. So be very careful with Microsoft. The VIX is also starting to bounce a little bit, but overall it's kind of like choppy. So honestly, guys, although there's chop in this market, I am seeing some weakness as of right now in SPY and the QQQ because we keep on making lower highs for the last couple of days. I would like to see us reclaim 686 to turn back to bullish, or at least have some hope for bulls. If we can't, we're watching 682 as our main supports, and if that breaks, we could be looking for more downside. As of right now, we're making lower highs and there is some weakness on the charts. But right now, for the shorter term, SPY has been consolidating right here. So be careful because of premiums. But the trend is turning more bearish. Same thing with the QQQ. We're still making lower highs. So I would just warn you all to be very careful. And we'll see if these head and shoulders pan out or not. Obviously, you have to wait for confirmation and we'll see how it ends up going. With that being said, I want to thank you all so much for listening. Please have an awesome rest of your guys' days. And I'll be back very soon in just a couple of hours for another update. Until then, be careful with the markets, especially with all the chop that's going on, and we'll see how it ends up going. Thank you for listening, and peace out.